Hi, my 4B detectives. Happy Wednesday. Today, for science, we are going to learn the parts of a plant. So now that you've planted your seeds and you know the difference between living and non-living, and you know what a plant needs to stay happy and healthy and grow up big and strong, you need to know what parts you're seeing. Because I don't know about you, but my plants are starting to sprout a little bit. You'll get to see them at our next video when we update our seed diaries, which will be a lot of fun. But I'm already starting to see some things coming out of the soil. I hope you are too. And so we need to know the different parts of our plant. So that way when we see them, we can say, oh, look, it's a stem, or oh, look, that's a leaf. So let's get started with that. But I want to first look over your homework. On Monday, you were asked to circle what do plants need. We learned about a couple of needs, and I said that there was one secret one on here. You might have thought, Miss Remitz, I think there might be two, but we'll explain everything here. And at the bottom, you were supposed to describe why one of the items you circled is important. I hope you were able to do that and understand why some of these needs are important for living things, specifically plants. So let's get started looking at the answers. Chocolate. Obviously, plants do not need chocolate because they only need water and their food is nutrients in the soil. So we can X out chocolate. They're not having a sweet tooth or going out for Halloween. Air. Now, air was, ding, 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 the secret need I didn't mention. So air doesn't only mean oxygen, what we're breathing in. Air is a gas. And so plants take in air that we breathe out, and they mix that up and turn it into oxygen. They're able to get food out of our breath. Isn't that crazy? So air is one of the needs for a plant. But I definitely think these human foods like honey and donuts and salmon steak, look, even coconut juice. Now, they do like their liquids, but I don't think a plant's looking to go eat some coconuts. When it comes to animals, we really only like animals that help pollinate plants and flowers. A bear would probably want to go eat the plants, so let's cross him out. Uh-oh, I see paint here. Now, paint's really fun to use in a class, and I'm sure Miss Dania would agree. But Miss Dania would also agree that plants can be poisoned by paint. Paint has a lot of chemicals and toxic, which means bad and unhealthy things in it. And that's why it's able to be used for painting and having all those colors. If you were to paint a plant, you might be able to kill it, which would be horrible. We want your plant to survive. Now, I know that sunlight is very important because they get their food from the sun and they're able to stay happy and grow using the sun's light. But a candle will never be able to have the same power as the sun. The candle is only a flame, but it's not a star. So let's cross out candle. I definitely think we need to circle water already because we've talked about it. And we even mentioned how the food comes from the soil of a plant. Oh, the soil, the ground, the food comes there, that the plant is living in the soil, so the food comes from there. But moonlight, now this one confused me at first, and I'm wondering if it confused you. The moon doesn't make its own light, but the moon's light comes from the sun. So even though the moonlight is not as powerful, there are a lot of people who actually grow their plants and try to have a moon cycle where, depending on what phase the moon is in, their plants will grow more or less. If you want, you can circle moonlight. I'm going to put a question mark next to it because the moon's not as strong as the sun. Describe why one of the items you circled is important. Oh, I can do that. The soil is important, and I wonder if you can tell me why. Think to yourself, what was it that the soil did? The soil is important. Because, oh, there's a word of the week, because it has nutrients, which is food, plant food, nutrients in it, and it holds the roots down from falling over. Were you thinking about that? I hope so. And it holds the roots down because when that plant starts to grow bigger, taller, wider, the roots have to do a lot of work to keep that flower or plant standing tall. It holds the roots down. So these are the answers to Monday's work. Today, you are going to be doing the parts of a flower page. We're going to do that now, but looking at a bean plant. And you'll do this. Now that you know the needs and the parts of a plant, you can cut, or if you don't have scissors, you can just write the answers here. We'll go over this next time, but this is your homework for today. Do not do the last page. We'll be doing that on Monday. So you're only doing plant parts today and plants parts versus their needs. In order to do well on that, let's learn the different parts of a plant. I went ahead and drew us a bean plant. Now, I know none of your beans are probably looking like this right now. If they are, I don't know what is in your water. I don't know what awesome window your plant is sitting on, but good job. But really, you should only have a little bit coming out of the soil, if anything at all. This is what a bean plant is going to look like, hopefully at the end of 2 weeks. It's going to grow out of the ground, start curving over, and you'll see kind of a circular, oval-looking end to the plant, and that's going to cut open, which is awesome. And that's where the beans are going to come from, the seeds are going to come from. It's even going to grow leaves. Now, my leaves look a little silly, and that's because I wanted to show both what the leaves would look like and way, 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 way down the line, what a bean pod might look like if yours is able to grow them. Hopefully, by the time we start planting these outside, which you can do if you want, you'll be getting bean plants. But let's look at the plant's parts. I have nothing down here. And that's because I wanted to see what we see up top and then dive down into the soil. So the soil is where you planted your bean and your seeds, and eventually it's going to pop open and start growing 2 things. 1, it's going to grow up, and 2, it's going to grow down. Think to yourself, what are the parts called down here that branch out, and they're very thin, kind of like string. They branch out into the soil. These are responsible, I'll draw an arrow, or maybe I'll write it in black. These are responsible for keeping the plant nice and tall from falling over, and they suck up like straws the nutrients from the soil or the water from the soil. Did you think of what it's called? These are the roots. R-O-O-T-S, roots. So the roots are spreading out like string or rope to hold it down, kind of like you would hold down a tent so it doesn't fly away in the wind. But they're also sucking up like straws the nutrients and the water in the soil. It's awesome. Let's pop up out of the ground now like our plants are going to be doing. This is a really long green kind of line. It's almost like a beanstalk, right? A beanstalk is a really big bean plant. We are going to be reading Jack and the Beanstalk, but if you go on Epic, I also favorited, I don't know if you can see my favorites, I'll sign it if you can't, but I also have Jill and the Beanstalk, I think it was, but there's a lot of different beanstalk books out there, so check them out. What is this long green kind of stalk called? Before it's a stalk. Flowers have these. Most plants have these, I mean, unless they're down close to the ground. It begins with an ST, it has a blend. St. short E, M. Stem. So before it becomes a stalk, sorry, my marker's not working too well. Before it becomes a stalk, it's called a stem. A stem is the skinny green line that travels out of the ground to where the flower is or where the seed is going to be. And the stem is responsible for keeping it up straight so that it doesn't fall over like the roots do. And the stem also helps travel up and down the plant all the food. So any of the food that the roots get, the stem is kind of like the road or an elevator even because it's going up, and it delivers it to the top part. And then anything they capture like sunlight, it delivers back down. So it's a constant circle, and that's the awesome part of plants. Every single part of it is working together to make sure this plant stays nice and healthy and grows up strong. So now that it's growing up, let's look here. Obviously, we know that these green parts are going to be the leaves. V-E-S is how you spell leaves. One leaf would be L-E-A-F. Leaf, leaves. And they are sucking in sunlight, and they're also helping to shield the plant. If a plant has a lot of leaves, that means it's taking in so much nutrients. And sometimes those leaves are able to grow more parts from the stem, which is really fun. But look here, it's kind of circular, it's bigger, and that is the seed. So your seed has started to grow, and it's going to drop its own seed by eventually popping open, right? And it would either grow a bean plant, which would look a little bit more like this, which is what you eat. And there would be kind of like peas in a pod. You can't see it too much, but yours is going to crack open and be able to drop another seed, which would then land in the soil. And once it lands in the soil, it's going to set its own roots and it's going to grow up. And it's an ever-ending cycle. Sometimes if you eat a bean, or if maybe a bird or a squirrel, I don't know, if another animal comes up and eats this plant, they are going to take away the seed from that plant and plant it somewhere else. And that's how plants, even though they can't move except with the wind, they are able to set their seeds other places. Did you know that that's how apples came to come across our entire country? They only started in one small section, but because animals or people would eat them, we were able to spit the seeds out somewhere or throw the seeds out or even plant them ourselves and spread that fruit or plant or flower all across the land. That's really fun. So today you are going to do 2 pages in your packet, which I said earlier when looking at the homework. You are going to do the parts of a flower. Be careful when you're looking for where that seed is going to be on the flower. I hope you find it. You're also going to do plant parts versus plant needs, and you'll have to put them and sort them on the right side. That's all you're going to be doing today. You can look and water your plant, but you don't need to write about it in your diary. If you want, you can go get started. If you would like to stay with me for a few more minutes, I'm going to read this really cute book. It's called Mrs. Spitzer's Garden. And so she is a teacher just like me, and she grows a garden like we are doing as a class. If you want to, stick around and read that with me. Otherwise, have a great day. Today, I wanted to read Mrs. Spitzer's Garden because I thought it talked a lot about plants' needs and how a plant grows and how you can take care of your plants, not just by watering them, but also just being nice to them and being kind to them and making sure that they're growing okay. And I think it's fun to see what this woman gets up to. So let's read together Mrs. Spitzer's Garden. I've been waiting all year to read this. Mrs. Spitzer is a teacher. She is in room 108 of Tremont Elementary School. It seems like she really likes gardening. I can see she has a shovel with some dirt, gardening shoes, gardening gloves, and oh, look here. I see a leaf already popping in. Wow, her classroom is gorgeous. Inside room 108 are 6 tables, 4 circles, and 2 rectangles. That makes 6, 4 plus 2. There is a rug in one corner with real hopscotch squares and checkerboards woven in bright colors. There is also a size chart, a birthday chart, a gerbil in a cage, their birthday chart, gerbil in a cage, a housekeeping and dress up corner, a row of 22 pegs for coats and backpacks, and in another corner, Mrs. Spitzer's desk. So we're actually able to see most of this stuff in this picture. Look, they have an alphabet line just like us. They have maps and toys. Oh, a lot of brooms. I even see that they have a pet. Their pet's going through this pet store. That's fun. They have a pet gerbil. We have Smokey, who's way better. Oh, and look, you can even see more gardening tools. At the end of summer, Mr. Merrick, the principal, walks down the halls to Mrs. Spitzer's room and gives her a packet of seeds. Oh, look, he has a wheelbarrow. Mrs. Spitzer consults her calendar, which means she checks her calendar to make sure she's safe, and plans her daily schedule. She checks her tools, so she's safe to get planning. She gets her tools out. She makes sure the soil is right, light, and well drained, with plenty of room for sprouting. Then Mrs. Spitzer plants the seeds. So we gave you soil that is meant to have a healthy life for any plants that you put in it. And she's going outside to check her soil. So if you end up wanting to plant your plant outside, plant your seed outside, you need to make sure that the soil's not rough, that it's nice and light, it can easily grow its roots out, and that it's not going to flood when it rains. Whoa, look at that. Look at all these really pretty flies. She waters them, feeds them, and makes sure they get plenty of sun. So I think we have 3 needs there: watering, feeding them through the soil, and making sure that they're in a place that's not shady. Wow, look at the sun coming down to shine on them. The seeds begin to sprout. So that's where we are now. I like how this book has the insects coming out and they look huge compared to her. This one's hanging onto her umbrella. The sun is nice and big. I think that it's going to take things that we normally see as small and make them huge. That's my prediction from looking at the cover. Here's her feet, and you can see some plants are talking. And there's an angry looking butterfly or moth. Oh, look, angry snail, angry caterpillar, angry mouse, angry cricket. But the flowers seem to be yelling at them. As the plants grow, Mrs. Spitzer watches them closely. She checks daily for weeds and pests. Uh-oh. So it seems like these flowers are yelling at them to leave the garden. They must be considered bad for plants. I can see that the caterpillar here is eating leaves, so he's definitely not helpful. Oh, and we can see snails. I actually learned that snails can harm plants using their gunk or their slime. And I definitely see weeds here popping up. The weeds block the roots of the plants from growing. She knows that different plants need different things and that each plant has its own shape. This one has many flowy petals. This one has nice straight petals. Oh, I think that's a frog. This one grows nice and tall, but then has a very short top. This one's blue. We have pink and yellow. Oh, more petals here. So they need different things, but we know that the main 3 or 4 things they need is food, water, sunlight, and soil. Air too, though. So I guess it's the top 5. Some of the plants grow quickly. Oh, look how small she is. Do you think she's really that small? Do you think they got big? Or do you think this is all in her imagination? Kind of like an Alice in Wonderland story. Some of the plants grow quickly, pushing upward, eager, impatient. Some grow more slowly, unfolding themselves bit by bit. Some plants sprout thin and tall. Some are bushy and widespread. Some are bold and showy. They are brightly colored, saying, "Look at me!" Some are silvery and quiet, the color of the earth. A few are like wildflowers and will grow anywhere you put them. Look, they're in the concrete, in the sidewalk. And some need gentle care, a special watching over. So this one's growing in the crack of a wall. Can you see that? Look, I thought that was the ground at first, but it's actually a wall. Wow, look at the garden. It's gotten so big. They have lights. There she is tending to it. As the seasons change, Mrs. Spitzer tends her garden. So we have pumpkins, and I see some Christmas lights. Those pumpkins are marching. And then the year is over, and her job is done. But the plants will keep growing, uncurling their stems, stretching their leaves outward, and showing their faces to the sun. And that looks like the sun, but that's really just a sunflower, right? And after a long, hard work of taking care of those flowers and seeds, she's taking a break. Mrs. Spitzer puts away her tools, her daily calendar, and her plan book. Soon another year will start, and Mr. Merrick will once again walk down the hall with a packet of seeds for Mrs. Spitzer. She will dust off her tools, till the soil, and a new garden will begin. My friends, that's interesting here. Look at all the pictures. There are flowers and the pumpkin. Here are some of the characters we saw earlier in the book. They were just flying down. Here are paintings of the different flowers, but we know the flowers wouldn't be able to come inside. And a whole school year passed, but we never saw her kids. What are you thinking about? What do you think this book was really showing us? I'm wondering if these flowers and plants in her garden aren't actually flowers. It taught us about the needs of plants and flowers and how they all grow. But what if each one of these flowers was a student? Each student has different needs. They grow differently. They look differently. And she made sure that the soil, the garden, which we could say is the classroom, was right before the kids came. Now, I'm sure she was actually growing seeds, but when the principal hands her her seeds, maybe it's what the principal gave me, a list of all your names. I like reading this book because I think it has 2 stories. One about a gardener who gardens over the summer, and 2 about a teacher who's making sure that she teaches all her flowers or her kitties who grow up nice and big to make sure that they're nice and happy. She grows and teaches them to be perfect in their garden. I hope you enjoyed this cute read aloud, and I hope you enjoy, and it's not too difficult for you to do the plant's parts and tell the difference between a plant's needs versus its parts. Good luck, my detectives, and I'll see you next time for science where we check our plans. Woo! Bye.